Good evening. Oh, it wouldn't start without a little bit of a mess. But good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fourth edition of Cooking with Adam in support of KPMG's Movember campaign. So glad to have you in the kitchen this evening. We are going to whip up a fantastic weeknight dinner. My chicken Caesar salad burgers served with some crispy Parmesan potatoes. I mean, it takes the best of both worlds, creamy Caesar salad, and pairs them in a fantastic, delicious, easy to make burger. I mean, what's not to love? We're also going to be making our crispy Parmesan potatoes, and those are, a great alternative, slightly healthy alternative to fries, served with that traditional burger. So we're going to have a lot of fun over the next hour. There are also going to be members of the KPMG Movember team monitoring the YouTube chat. So if you have any questions, if you need any clarifications, if I'm going too fast, please use that chat. A member of the KPMG Movember team will relay that on to me because we are live. So keep that in mind. This is a live production broadcasting to you here from Toronto, Ontario, and can't wait to cook this fantastic dinner with you. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and turn on your oven to 450 degrees. That nice high temperature is going to allow those potatoes to get nice and crispy and make those delicious crispy Parmesan potatoes. So please go ahead, set that oven to 450 degrees, and we're going to get started here in just a few short minutes. We're going to allow others a few additional minutes to join the stream here. And also, just before I proceed, if I can just get some confirmation in the YouTube chat there. I mean, one, who's excited? And two, just to confirm that you can hear me okay and that the stream appears to be coming through smoothly. So if you could let me know in the chat, we will get started in just a few short minutes. Hopefully this has had a chance to catch up. And please just let us know in the chat if the video is now loading for you. Thank you. All right. Oops. So things like it seems like the video is coming in a little bit better. So just before we get started, just a reminder that everybody does have the recipe card. You should have received that via email earlier last week. So the recipe card obviously is yours to take home. Hopefully you find this recipe delicious to make it again. As well as, it can help you follow along in case you feel like you missed a step, you need to double check something. That recipe card is your friend. So we're just going to check the chat here very quick, just ensure that things are coming in smoothly. And that's what I like to see. All right. So why don't we go ahead and let's get started. Let's get cooking. So what we're going to do to start, you'll have your two russet potatoes. And what we're going to do with these is slice them just into very thin 1/4-inch slices. So make sure you tuck those fingers in. I don't want to lose any of those, but we're going for nice, thin 1/4-inch slices. Those nice, thin slices are going to allow those potatoes to get crispy in just about 25 minutes. So what we can do is go ahead and, we can go ahead and just slice those potatoes. So a nice thin slice is what I'm looking for, about this thickness like that. So go ahead and take the time to slice those up. And we're using russet potatoes today. What's great about russet potatoes is they have a lot of starch, which allows them to get nice and crispy, but at the same time sort of hold on to their structure. Russet potatoes are usually what's used in a French fry. Even McDonald's fries use russet potatoes. As I said, the higher starch content in those allows those to get nice and crispy. And if you're just joining us now, please make sure that you've turned your oven on to 450 degrees. All right, so what you're going to do is slice up those 2 potatoes. Nice even slice, take your time, no need to rush. And as a reminder, this recipe does make 2 portions, but if you're cooking for a family, it can very easily be doubled. So you're looking at about 1 potato per person here. So I'm going to go ahead and slice that second potato. And you can totally use a different kind of potato if that's all you have on hand. You know, Yukon Golds could work well. They might just not keep their shape just as well. You know, Yukon Golds are fantastic for something like a mashed potato, but generally when it comes to roasting, French fries, frying, anything like that, I like to use the russet. Okay, so everybody will now have their potatoes sliced. Like I said, no rush. I will take a short pause here to allow everybody to catch up. So what you're going to do with those potatoes, let's go ahead. We can take those potatoes and we're just going to add them to a medium bowl. You know, what this is going to allow us to do is to disperse the oil evenly so each potato gets nice and coated in both the oil and our seasoning. Potatoes do love to stick together, that high starch content. So just do your best to separate those as you're throwing them in. So see, I've got my potatoes in my bowl here. I'm going to toss those with about 1 tablespoon of olive oil or any oil you have on hand. Give those a nice toss. You can use a spoon. We just want to make sure each of those potatoes is nicely coated. So what you're going to do next is take half of the seasoning that you have. So, you know, you can use any seasoning of your choice here. If you don't have a favorite seasoning, I find garlic powder works really well. So we're going to take half a tablespoon of that seasoning. I'm using a sort of a garlic blend seasoning. We're going to take half that seasoning, so half a tablespoon, and go ahead and put that over the potatoes. So about half your seasoning. And again, you know, what I want to do, you can even go ahead and get your hand in there. Just make sure that those get nice and coated. You want to make sure each of those potatoes has a nice amount of seasoning on it, as well as some oil. Depending on what seasoning you're using, I'd also recommend about a half teaspoon of salt, and feel free to add some pepper in there as well. You know, what's important with cooking is adding salt at each stage. You know, if you just salt the potatoes at the end, they are never going to have the same amount of flavor they do as if you salted them before the cooking process. All right, so how's everybody doing with step one? All right, so let me know in the potatoes if you've had a chance to chop up those, or let me know in the comments, pardon me, if you've had a chance to chop up those potatoes, get those seasoned, and make sure your oven has fully preheated. We want to make sure that those get a nice blast of heat right away. All right, so I've checked my oven. I'm at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go ahead and put those potatoes in the oven. Put them on the middle rack. They're going to cook for about 24, 25 minutes, but we're going to need to flip them halfway. So I highly recommend setting a timer for 12 minutes so you don't forget about those in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and place those onto my baking sheet. Got my parchment lined baking sheet here. And what I just want to make sure is that these have a nice little bit about amount of space in between each of them. You want to make sure that they're able to breathe. If you don't give them that space, they're not going to get crispy, and you're not going to have crispy Parmesan potatoes. So just making sure that they do have a little bit of air to breathe. You know, if you find that you need a second baking sheet and you have one, great. Otherwise, I'm sure one pan sheet of potatoes is plenty for you, because it's super important just to make sure that they have a little bit of room, you know, to breathe around each potato. Looks like I might get fairly lucky here with just a few left. So as you can see as well, you know, there's a nice amount of seasoning. I can see a little bit of seasoning on each one. The potatoes are glistening. They have that oil, nice oil coat, and they're going to go in the oven for 12 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and set that timer. Great. So the potatoes are in the oven cooking away. In the meantime, what we're going to do is go ahead and start to prepare our chicken burger patty. So what I'm going to do, if you want to cut down on a little bit of mess, I'm going to use this same bowl. Just give it a quick rinse. And I'm going to go ahead and just use that same bowl. So what we're going to do next is make the chicken patty, as I said. So what we're going to do is combine the breadcrumbs, our garlic powder or seasoning, so that other half tablespoon that we have left, half of the garlic. So either if you're using a pre-pureed garlic, you're going to use a half a tablespoon, or if you're using fresh garlic cloves, always my preference. What you can go ahead and do is now mince those cloves, and we're going to add a half a tablespoon into the burger mixture. So we're going to combine the rest of that seasoning, a quarter cup of those breadcrumbs, all of your ground chicken or the meatless alternative of your choice, and a half tablespoon of that minced garlic. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I've got a pound of ground chicken here, so I'm going to take about half of that. You know, we're looking for about 250 grams total. So just a little bit more than half of a pound. I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to add in my quarter cup of Italian breadcrumbs. That's going to help everything stick together nicely. I'm going to add the rest of my garlic seasoning. And I haven't had the chance yet to mince my garlic, so I am going to go ahead and do that. So generally, 3 cloves should net you about 1 tablespoon. It obviously depends on the size of your clove, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and mince that garlic. So instead of a garlic mincer, I actually generally like to use just like a micro plane. Some might see this as like a cheese grater. If you've tuned into one of my cooking classes before, you know I've talked about how much I love using this thing just because you know it yields you so much more garlic. You do have to be a little bit careful; it is sharp, but you just get so much more yield out of each of those cloves. So there's 1 clove. There's the second clove. And the third clove is just going to get me just a little bit over a tablespoon here, but nobody ever got in trouble for using too much garlic. All right, so we've got our garlic there now. So I've got about a tablespoon there. So I'm going to take half of that, about half a tablespoon, as I mentioned, and add that into my chicken mixture. So now in my chicken mixture, I've got my breadcrumbs, I've got my seasoning, I've got my garlic, and I've got my garlic seasoning as well. So what we can do is also season this with just about a half teaspoon of salt, or just a pinch. And feel free to add, a little bit of pepper as well. So what you're going to do is just take those hands, get them nice and wet, and just make sure that mixture comes together. You want to make sure it's, well mixed, but at the same time not over mixed. You want to make sure that you get that garlic evenly distributed and that the meat soaked up all of those breadcrumbs. So no need to overmix, just until you see everything has been nicely combined. Okay, so as you can see, everything's come together here. I've got my garlic of two types in there. I've got my breadcrumb as a nice binder. And of course, I've got my ground chicken. I'm going to go ahead and just give my hands a quick rinse here, although we will be using them again. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to get that patty mixture formed. What we're going to do next is create that into two patties, and that's what's going to form our burger. So what's important when you're making burgers, whether that's beef, turkey, chicken, whatever kind, you are going to get a little bit of shrinkage in the pan, right? So what I usually like to do with clean hands is just take a look at the size of my burger bun and make sure that when I'm forming my patties, I make them slightly bigger than the bun, just so that allows when they shrink, they are the perfect size for that bun. All right, I'm going to take a quick pause there. So checking my timer, we're about a quarter of the way through the total cook. So I've got 6 minutes left on my timer before those are ready to flip. And I'll take a pause here. If there's any questions, comments, let me know if you're having fun so far. We're going to have a fantastic burger for dinner. It's going to be a real crowd pleaser, and you'll be the star in your kitchen tonight. And it's okay if your mixture seems a little bit wet. Ground chicken is very moist, so that's normal, not to worry. So I'm going to go ahead and take my meat mixture here and go ahead and form that into two patties. So what we'll do here is just sort of split that into an even two pieces. And you kind of want to handle this as little as possible. So I'm just going to form them into sort of a circular shape and then just press down. You're looking, as I said, compared to the size of your bun, but usually about a 5-inch patty. As we said, it's okay if it seems a little bit moist, but you want to just make sure you've got two nice, even patties there. All right, we are working with chicken, so of course I'm going to go wash my hands again. So now I've got my two patties formed. I'm going to go ahead and turn the burner on my pan to about medium high. That's going to take a minute to preheat there. And once that's had a chance to preheat, you can use 1 tablespoon of oil in the pan. Again, give that a few seconds to get nice and hot, and then we can go ahead and drop our chicken burgers into the pan. They're going to cook for a few minutes per side, but about 5-6 minutes per side. But if you do find that your burgers are browning too quickly, you do want a nice crust on them, but if they are browning too quickly, you can just go ahead and turn down that pan. And this video will be available for playback. I know we are seem to be running into a few issues just with the latency, but it will be available for playback after as well. So, you know, you do have that recipe card to help follow along, as well as this video will be available for playback after. Whether you need to catch up on a step, or you know, maybe you want to make it again or share it with a friend. So yes, this video will be available for playback after. So I'm just letting my pan heat up. Generally, what a good trick, you know, to make sure that your pan is hot enough is just to, you know, hold your hand over it for a few seconds. You know, if at the point where you can't hold your hand for more than a few seconds, you know, that's generally a good sign that your pan is nice and hot. So unfortunately, I'm working with an electric stove here. It isn't the quickest thing in the world, so it will take a few minutes to heat up. But it's good to just, you know, run that hand that's 5, 6 inches away from the pan. And once that, you know, pan feels nice and hot to your hand, that's probably a good time to add your oil. Give that, you know, 15, 20 seconds to heat up the oil in the pan as well. And then you can go ahead and place those chicken burgers into the pan. All right, so we're still just waiting for that pan to get nice and hot. As I said, it can take a while over here. If you have a gas stove, you know, that pan is probably getting much hotter than mine is, but you can be the best judge. Like I said, I love to use this hand technique because it's important to make sure you have a hot pan. You know, when anything has contact, right away those molecules will start to bubble, and you'll start to get that Maillard reaction, which is, you know, how you end up with a crispy burger, a nice seared chicken breast. That's really what you're looking for. If you start with not a hot enough pan, you know, that chicken or that beef is going to unfortunately go gray quickly and not have a chance to get that nice, you know, crispy sear on the outside. That sear really imparts a lot of flavor as well, which is super important in anything that you're cooking. So I can see I've got about 42 seconds left on the clock for my potatoes. So I'm going to get ready, grab some tongs to just give those a quick flip. All right, so I'm already seeing some good crispiness around those edges right here. We're going to go ahead and give those a quick flip. And I can see that my pan is getting hot, nice and hot here as well. Oh, and it wouldn't be a condo cooking if the fire alarm didn't go off. All right, those are going to go back in the oven for another 12 minutes. I can see that my pan is nice and hot, just what I'm looking for. I'm going to go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of that oil. That's going to get hot nice and fast. You want to make sure that that pan is completely coated in oil, just a nice thin layer. And I'm going to go ahead and add those 2 chicken burgers. I'm sure you can hear the sizzle. That's exactly what we're looking for. So as I said, those are going to take about 5, 6 minutes. I'm going to set another 12-minute timer. Otherwise, we don't want to forget about those potatoes. All right. So we'll let these things do their thing. You know, what's important about searing is just to leave these things alone. You know, we want to make sure that they have good contact with the pan. And that's going to really allow them to get that nice sear on the outside, which imparts so much flavor. So we do have about 5 minutes until that next step, until those burgers need a nice flip. So what we're going to do in the meantime is make a little bit of garlic butter for those buns. That is going to absolutely transform those buns and make them very delicious. So all we're going to do is just take 1 tablespoon of butter, melt that. I'm going to use the microwave. If you don't have a microwave, feel free to melt that on the stove. And then stir in the remaining of that garlic puree. So about a half tablespoon of that left. So I'm going to go ahead and melt 1 tablespoon of butter. All right, so I can smell these chicken burgers already. That garlic's really coming through, and they are going to be just absolutely delicious. So like I said, let's go ahead, microwave this. And I'm sure your kitchen is smelling as good as mine, but like I said, that garlic is coming through, and it is just smelling delicious. How's everybody's kitchen smelling? Let me know in the chat. Hope things are going well. And as always, you can use that chat function if you have any questions, comments, or just want to say hi. All right. So that butter is now melted. Give it a little stir, and I'm just going to add in the remaining amount of that garlic puree. So that can just go right into there. Give that a good stir. All right, I officially have garlic butter. We're going to put that on hold for a second. Let's go ahead and just have a quick check of those burgers. See, I'm getting a nice crispy crust on that, but almost too crispy. So I want to just make sure that I turn that down a little bit. If you're having the same issue, just make sure you turn that heater or that burner down a little bit to medium, because we want to make sure that chicken has a chance to cook right through. Got about 2 more minutes on this side. Like I said, about 5-6 minutes per side, and then I will give them a flip. They may look a little burnt, but like I said, that's really just lots of good crispy flavor. So let's take a quick recap of where we're at. We've got our chicken burgers cooking away on the stove. We're monitoring those. We've had a quick chance to make sure our heat looks right. We've now got our garlic butter put together. We're going to put that on the buns in just a minute. And then the last thing that we can do, we're going to make our Caesar mayo. So what I've done here, I have 2 tablespoons of mayo, and to that I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of your favorite Caesar salad dressing. So we're going to end up with about 6 tablespoons total. So just want you to go ahead, add 4 tablespoons. 4 tablespoons is also a quarter cup of that Caesar dressing to that mayo. Give it a good stir, and we're just going to stir that to combine. So we've got just about everything that we need now for our successful chicken Caesar salad burgers with our crispy Parmesan potatoes. I've got about 6 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and give these a flip. I've got that nice crispy crust on the outside. This one might look a little